The Fletcher-class destroyers, introduced during World War II, represented one of the most significant leaps forward in naval engineering. Built by the United States between 1941 and 1945, these ships became the backbone of the US Navy's destroyer force. They were designed at a time when the US anticipated large-scale naval combat across vast oceanic theaters, particularly in the Pacific. More than 175 units were produced, making the Fletcher-class not only the most numerous class of destroyers in history, but also among the most versatile. Their size, speed, firepower, and endurance set them apart from earlier destroyers, which often struggled with balancing offensive capability against survivability. Fletcher destroyers were designed to counter multiple threats simultaneously: submarines, aircraft, and surface ships, making them true multi-role vessels before the concept became standard in naval design. This flexibility allowed them to escort aircraft carriers, bombard shorelines, defend fleets against enemy air attacks, and engage in night surface actions. What made them revolutionary was not one single feature, but a carefully orchestrated set of innovations. From their engineering design to their advanced weaponry and radar systems, the Fletcher-class became a symbol of technological progress in naval warfare. One of the most groundbreaking features of the Fletcher-class destroyers was their hull design. Earlier American destroyers often had cramped hulls that left little space for upgrades or additional weaponry. The Fletcher-class broke this pattern by being significantly larger, with a displacement of about 100 tons. This increase allowed for a more balanced distribution of weight, which in turn improved stability and seaworthiness. The design ensured that the ships could handle rough seas in the Pacific while carrying heavier loads of armament and fuel. Their larger hull also gave engineers flexibility for future upgrades, which proved vital as the war progressed and new technologies such as improved radar, sonar, and anti-aircraft weapons were developed. Unlike earlier destroyers, the Fletcher-class had the endurance to accompany carrier groups on long voyages, often traveling thousands of miles without needing constant resupply. This longer operational range meant they could remain relevant across different campaigns. From the Atlantic convoy routes to the island hopping strategy in the Pacific. The whole design thus gave them a platform not just for immediate wartime service, but for decades of relevance, as many remained in service well into the Cold War. The primary weapon system of the Fletcher-class destroyers was the famous 5-inch, 38-caliber dual-purpose gun. This was revolutionary because it could effectively engage both surface targets and aircraft, eliminating the need for separate heavy and anti-aircraft batteries. These guns were mounted in 5 single turrets, strategically positioned to give the ship overlapping fields of fire, capable of firing about 15 rounds per minute. The guns were deadly against enemy ships, but what made them even more critical was their anti-aircraft role. When combined with advanced fire, control systems and radar, directed aiming, the 5-inch guns gave the Fletcher-class a significant edge in defending against the increasingly dangerous threat of Japanese aircraft, including kamikaze attacks later in the war. Unlike many earlier naval guns, the 5-inch 38 could elevate to high angles, enabling them to target fast, moving planes at different altitudes. This flexibility transformed the destroyer into a multi-role combatant, able to provide shore bombardment, protect larger ships, and dominate smaller surface combatants. By integrating dual-purpose artillery as a standard, the Fletchers set a precedent that influenced naval design for decades, making the 5-inch 38 one of the most iconic naval guns in history. Another major innovation that made the Fletcher-class destroyers revolutionary was their integration of advanced radar and fire control technology. Prior to World War II, naval engagements often depended heavily on visual spotting, signal lights, and human estimation. This was extremely limiting in poor weather or night battles. The Fletcher-class, however, was among the first destroyers to be equipped with radar systems that allowed crews to detect enemy aircraft and ships at much greater ranges and under conditions of limited visibility. The Mark 37 gun fire control system, paired with radar, allowed the 5-inch guns to track and engage aerial targets with previously unseen accuracy. This capability was crucial during night battles in the Pacific, where Japanese forces often relied on stealth and surprise. The destroyers could now fight effectively in darkness, turning the tide in engagements, such as those around Guadalcanal. Radar also gave the Fletchers a better ability to direct anti-aircraft fire, which became increasingly important as kamikaze attacks intensified. The integration of radar into destroyer design marked a turning point in naval warfare, as it combined firepower with technological precision, making the Fletcher-class a cutting-edge force in modern combat. The Fletcher-class destroyers also became revolutionary because of their powerful anti-aircraft defenses. Early in World War II, many navies underestimated the danger that aircraft posed to surface vessels. However, the U.S. Navy quickly recognized the need for better protection as Japanese dive bombers and torpedo planes wreaked havoc on American fleets. Fletcher destroyers were designed with flexibility in mind, allowing them to carry multiple 40 mm Bofors and 20 mm Oerlikon cannons in addition to their main 5-inch guns. These rapid-firing weapons created overlapping defensive fields that could cover the ship from low-flying attackers. As the war continued, the Fletchers were constantly upgraded with more AA guns, sometimes doubling their original complement to match the increasing threat from kamikazes. This adaptability made them reliable bodyguards for larger ships, especially aircraft carriers, which were prime targets for enemy bombers. The sheer volume of fire from a Fletcher destroyer could break up massed air assaults and protect the fleet at critical moments. By integrating heavy AA weaponry as a standard, the Fletcher-class set a new standard for destroyers, proving that surface warships could still dominate the skies when properly armed and equipped with advanced fire control systems. The Fletcher-class destroyers were designed not only to fight surface ships and aircraft, but also to hunt submarines effectively. They carried 10 21-inch torpedo tubes, arranged in 2 quintuple mounts, making them formidable opponents against enemy cruisers and even battleships. But beyond surface torpedo attacks, the Fletchers excelled at anti-submarine warfare, ASW. Equipped with depth-charge racks and gun projectors, they could launch a deadly pattern of explosives designed to destroy submarines lurking beneath the waves. Later in the war, many Fletcher-class ships were upgraded with Hedgehog anti-submarine mortars, which increased accuracy by firing a spread of contact, fused charges ahead of the ship. This gave them a decisive advantage against German U-boats in the Atlantic and Japanese submarines in the Pacific. Their sonar systems allowed them to track underwater threats with greater precision than earlier destroyers, making them highly effective convoy escorts. The dual use of torpedoes for surface engagements and ASW systems for submarine hunting showcased their versatility. In essence, the Fletchers could perform almost every combat role at sea, from sinking enemy warships to protecting vital supply lines against the silent menace of submarines. Speed and endurance were vital in the vast naval battles of World War II, and the Fletcher-class destroyers excelled in both areas. They could reach speeds of over 35 knots, powered by advanced steam turbines that generated around 60,000 shaft horsepower. This allowed them to keep up with fast carrier task forces, ensuring they could fulfill escort roles effectively. Their speed also gave them the ability to conduct offensive operations such as torpedo attacks and nighttime raids with devastating results. At the same time, they carried enough fuel to travel approximately 500 nautical miles at cruising speed, giving them the endurance needed for extended operations in the Pacific, where resupply points were often thousands of miles apart. Earlier destroyers were limited in range and often had to withdraw for refueling. But the Fletcher-class could remain at sea for much longer, providing continuous protection for carriers and battleships. This combination of speed and endurance made them true workhorses of the fleet. They could dash into combat, evade counterattacks, and still operate far from home bases, proving essential in campaigns that stretched across the vast distances of the Pacific Ocean. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Fletcher-class was its ability to perform multiple roles effectively. Unlike many warships designed for a single purpose, the Fletcher-class could seamlessly transition between missions. They could screen carriers against submarines, provide anti-aircraft defense, conduct offensive torpedo runs, and bombard enemy coastlines to support amphibious landings. This adaptability was not just theoretical. It was put to the test in nearly every theater of war. In the Solomon Islands, Fletcher destroyers engaged in ferocious night battles against Japanese surface ships. At Normandy, they delivered shore bombardments to assist Allied troops storming the beaches. In the Philippines, they defended carrier groups against kamikaze swarms. Few ships in history have demonstrated such versatility. The Fletcher-class was essentially a Swiss Army knife of the seas, and this flexibility ensured that no matter how the naval battlefield evolved, these destroyers remained useful. Their ability to switch between offensive and defensive roles without compromising effectiveness was, as a direct result of their balanced design, large hull, and innovative technology. This flexibility is why they remained in service long after the war ended, continuing to serve U.S. allies around the globe. The Fletcher-class destroyers not only changed ship design, but also influenced how naval strategy was conducted in the Pacific. Before their introduction, destroyers often served in specialized roles, such as convoy escorts or torpedo attackers. The Fletchers, however, demonstrated that a single destroyer class could fulfill multiple strategic needs. They played a vital role in carrier task force operations, where they formed protective screens against submarines and aircraft. At the same time, they conducted independent surface actions, using their speed and torpedoes to harass larger enemy vessels. Their ability to bombard shorelines meant that they were crucial in supporting the U.S. island hopping campaign, softening enemy defenses before amphibious landings. Commanders came to rely on Fletcher-class destroyers as dependable tools for almost any situation, and their presence often tipped the balance of battles. The flexibility they brought to naval strategy allowed the U.S. Navy to operate with greater confidence, knowing that the Fletchers could adapt to unexpected challenges. In this way, Their revolutionary design extended beyond technology. It reshaped the very way the US Navy fought the war, making them indispensable instruments of victory in the Pacific. Another feature that set the Fletcher-class apart was their improved survivability compared to earlier destroyers. Many pre-war destroyers were lightly built, prioritizing speed over armor or compartmentalization. This made them highly vulnerable to even minor battle damage. The Fletchers, however, were designed with a stronger hull structure and more advanced damage control systems. Their larger displacement allowed for better compartmentalization, meaning that a hit in one section of the ship did not necessarily doom the vessel. Many Fletcher-class destroyers survived torpedo strikes, kamikaze crashes, or bomb hits, and were able to return to port for repairs. Crews were also trained extensively in firefighting and flood control, which further improved their chances of survival. This resilience made them trustworthy assets in high-risk operations, where losses could otherwise have been devastating. The ability to absorb punishment and remain operational was crucial in the Pacific, where replacements were often far away. Survivability ensured that the investment in advanced technology and weapons was not easily wasted. Ultimately, this innovation reinforced the destroyer's reputation as a ship that could not only fight hard, but also endure the brutal realities of naval warfare. The success of the Fletcher-class destroyers was not limited to the US Navy alone. Their performance inspired Allied navies and influenced post-war ship design across the globe. After World War II, many Fletcher destroyers were transferred to Allied countries such as Japan, Italy, Germany, Greece, and Turkey as part of military assistance programs. These ships gave smaller navies access to state-of-the-art technology, significantly upgrading their capabilities. Nations that received Fletchers often kept them in service for decades, with some remaining active as late as the 1970s and 1980s. The adaptability of the design made it easy for recipient countries to modernize them with new electronics, missile systems, and anti-submarine weapons. This widespread service demonstrated the class's timeless value and highlighted its reputation as one of the most successful destroyer designs ever built. The Fletcher's ability to remain relevant long after World War II showed that the innovations it embodied, flexible hull design, advanced weapons, radar integration, and survivability, were not just wartime necessities, but long-term game changers in naval warfare. The global influence of these destroyers reinforced their revolutionary legacy well beyond the war years. One of the most severe tests for Fletcher-class destroyers came during the final stages of the Pacific War, when Japan unleashed waves of kamikaze attacks. These suicide missions targeted American carriers and battleships with relentless determination, and destroyers like the Fletchers bore much of the burden of defense. Thanks to their dual-purpose 5-inch guns, heavy anti-aircraft batteries, and radar-directed fire control, the Fletchers became frontline defenders against kamikaze strikes. Their crews often endured terrifying engagements, where multiple aircraft would dive at the fleet at once. In some cases, Fletchers themselves were directly targeted, and although many were damaged or even sunk, countless others successfully shot down attackers before they could reach their intended targets. The Fletcher's adaptability allowed them to absorb more AA weapons as the kamikaze threat grew, making them increasingly effective throughout 1944 and 1945. Their presence reassured carrier commanders that even in the face of overwhelming air assaults, there was a dependable shield of destroyers standing between them and destruction. This resilience and effectiveness under kamikaze attack cemented the Fletcher's reputation as one of the most vital defensive platforms of the Pacific Campaign. The innovations of the Fletcher-class destroyer had long-lasting effects on naval architecture. Ship designers worldwide took lessons from their success, applying similar design principles to post-war destroyer classes. The emphasis on multi-role capability, ships that could fight submarines, surface ships, and aircraft, became the norm rather than the exception. The importance of radar and electronic fire control, proven on the Fletcher class, paved the way for even more advanced combat systems in Cold War destroyers and cruisers. The concept of larger, more versatile hulls capable of receiving upgrades also became standard. Even today, modern destroyers such as the U.S. Arleigh Burke-class echo the philosophy of the Fletchers. Balanced firepower, advanced sensors, and robust survivability. This direct lineage demonstrates how the Fletcher-class was not just a temporary wartime innovation, but a foundation for future naval warfare. The destroyers bridged the gap between the lightly armed interwar destroyers and the missile-armed giants of the Cold War, proving that flexibility and forward-thinking design could keep a warship class relevant for decades. Their enduring legacy remains a testament to how revolutionary they truly were. While technological innovations defined the Fletcher-class, the human element also played a crucial role in their success. These destroyers typically carried a crew of about 273 officers and sailors, though wartime conditions often saw numbers swell with additional gunners and support personnel. Life aboard a Fletcher was challenging, as the ships were constantly in motion, frequently engaged in combat, and operated in harsh conditions ranging from the cold North Atlantic to the sweltering Pacific. Despite these hardships, crews quickly came to respect their ships. The reliability of the engines, the effectiveness of the weapons, and the survivability of the design gave sailors confidence in battle. Many veterans later recalled that the Fletcher-class felt like a fighting ship, built for war but also built to protect its crew. The sense of security fostered by strong design features like compartmentalization and effective damage control training was invaluable in high-stakes engagements. Ultimately, the partnership between innovative technology and highly trained crews transformed the Fletcher-class into a formidable naval weapon. It was this combination of human courage and engineering brilliance that truly made the class legendary in naval history. In retrospect, the Fletcher-class destroyers were revolutionary because they embodied a perfect balance of innovation, versatility, and survivability. Their larger hulls allowed for endurance and upgrades. Their dual-purpose guns gave them unmatched flexibility. Their radar and fire control systems made them deadly accurate, and their heavy anti-aircraft defenses made them indispensable protectors of the fleet. Combined with powerful torpedoes, advanced anti-submarine systems, and superior speed, they could perform nearly every combat role required at sea. More than just machines, they became the backbone of U.S. naval power in World War II and continued to influence ship design and strategy for decades. The Fletcher-class proved that a destroyer could be more than a specialized vessel. It could be a multi-role warship capable of adapting to the constantly shifting challenges of modern warfare. That adaptability, combined with their sheer numbers and effectiveness, made them symbols of American naval dominance. Even today, Historians and naval enthusiasts regard them as one of the most successful and revolutionary classes of warships ever built. The Fletcher-class destroyers were not just tools of war, they were milestones in the evolution of naval power.